Huge elections in Turkey. The President Erdogan wanted to rally his party and continue to get a majority, as they have been getting for a long time in Turkey, and he actually wanted to shore up his powers. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with Turkish politics, which would be most of you, they have a parliamentary system. Erdogan was the prime minister for a long time, and then last year he moved over and got elected as president. The president is supposed to be a largely ceremonial role in that system, but he wanted more power, so he wanted to be able to win enough seats to change the constitution to give the president more power. Well, it turns out in that quest he has failed. Surprisingly low numbers for his party. His party's the AKP, and they only got 41% of the voters. Now, in the past they'd get a majority. 41% still makes them the largest party in Turkey, but a significant disappointment. Coming in at number 2 is CHP, that's 25%. They're the more secular party in Turkey. MHP is the more nationalist party. They got 16% of the vote and likely will form a coalition party with Erdogan's group, and they will probably lead Turkey together. So it's not, at the end of the day, it will be a similar group of folks leading Turkey, so don't get overly excited if you're in the secular camp, which I am, let's be honest. HDP is the final party at hand, and they have gotten 13% of the vote. That is the Kurdish party. And it's interesting part of Turkish politics here that a lot of the Kurds who are Turkish citizens who are more religious used to vote with Erdogan's party because Erdogan's party is more right-wing, more religious, more fundamentalist. Some of those have now peeled off and back to the Kurdish party. In Turkish politics, you need a 10% threshold to get into parliament. Well, they finally got over that threshold in these historic elections. Now 13% of parliament will be from the largely Kurdish party. Although, interesting side note here, 4 Christians also elected in a country that is about 99% Muslim. 3 of them Armenians and 1 a Syriac Turk going to parliament now. That's all good news. More people of different varieties represented in Turkish parliament. They're obviously part of the Turkish population, and good to see them represented. Now, Erdogan has had a hold on power for a long time in Turkey, since 2003 when he got into office, based on the 2002 elections. His goal in this case, out of the 550 seats in Turkish parliament, was to gain 400. Well, he didn't get there. Constitutional change that would have given him more power would have required 330 seats in parliament. He didn't get there either. A majority, a simple majority, would have required 276, but he actually got 258. Now, he's not supposed to be campaigning at all. He's the president. It's not really constitutional for him to campaign for his party. He's not the prime minister. That's Ahmet Davutoğlu, who ran this campaign. And by the way, afterwards came out and declared victory. Yes, they got more votes than the other parties, but obviously not what they were expecting, and far from the goal that Erdogan had put of 400. Based on what they needed for the constitutional change, it was a severe setback. In fact, let me give you some context here. According to the Associated Press, the setback Sunday was the first time that the party faced having to find a coalition partner since it swept into power in 2002. The unexpected setback for AKP likely puts an end for the time being to Erdogan's hopes of passing constitutional changes that would have greatly boosted the powers of his office. Now, the deputy leader of the main opposition party, that's the secular party, Haluk Koç, said, "The true loser of this election is Erdogan. Turkey won." Again, Erdogan was not on the ballot. He had already won his presidential election a year ago, but he vigorously and appears unconstitutionally actually fought for his party anyway, campaigned for his party anyway. He's supposed to be a neutral figure right now that says to the different parties, hey, go ahead and put together a coalition. Obviously, he was a vested party in a way that Turkey's not used to in terms of a president. And that probably was part of his undoing. So for a long time, Erdogan has grabbed power in Turkey, and there's not been much of a reining in, especially at the election level. And here is the Turkish people saying enough is enough. And we're not delighted by his actions. And look, it's a number of factors involved. The Kurdish factor that we just explained, the economy was slumping. That's always a factor in any national election. But yes, part of this seems to be the Turkish electorate saying, you've gone too far. We're a democracy, we're a secular country, we don't intend to hand off all of our powers to one person who's built a cult of personality, who would like to change the Constitution to grab more power in what used to be a ceremonial role, that of the president in the case of Turkey. No, we want the power to rest with Parliament, which is more responsive to the Turkish people. So for all these years after he won elections, Erdogan would boast, well, the Turkish people have spoken, and I guess they must want me, so this is what democracy looks like. He would then turn around, of course, and limit the freedoms of the press and do many other things that are not part of a democracy. But in this case, I think that the opposition is fully within their rights to say, well, the Turkish people have spoken, and they are not in favor of your brand of fundamentalism and power grab. So he will have to recalibrate, and there's a new day in Turkey.